Hey there, Marian Fangler from Battleship Iowa, back by our inboard diagram, and recently we've shown you a lot of stuff way deep down in the ship. Today we're going to take you up quite a bit higher and we're going to go to the chart house. Through the magic of editing, we are now on the 04 level, right outside the chart house, and we are going to go inside and meet up with CIO David Canfield, and he's going to talk to us all about this space. Come on in.
Well, hi. Most of you guys know me, but for those of you that don't, my name's David Canfield, and I served on the ship from 1987 to 1989, and I'm back here now as part of the executive team. Right now, you're in what we affectionately call the weather guesser's shack. This is the meteorologist's shop, I guess, or office. We did have a meteorologist on board. We used to send weather balloons up. That would help us when we were doing remotely piloted vehicle flights, and also helped us steer clear of storms. Although our onboard meteorologist was about as accurate as your TV meteorologist of today, so we didn't always miss the storms. If we go in here, the next stop, this is navigation. And some people call this the chart room, but it's not really the chart room. The chart room is next door, but we do have a chart table here. And we have satellite navigation. So this is interesting because the sat-nav receiver is not GPS. When we were on board, we did not have GPS. The ship was decommissioned in 1990, and that was before GPS. And so you wonder, well, gosh, without GPS, how do you know where you are? Well, the guys that sailed tall ships didn't know where they were either. And that takes us into the next room. This is the actual chart room proper. And one of the things I like to point out when we're in here is we have this well in the chart table. And if we open this, it's got a tremendous amount of padding in there, and there used to be 2 gimbals. And this was actually one of the most important pieces of equipment on the ship, and one of the least technical, or at least one of the least electronic. Sitting in there in 2 gimbal mounts were 2 hand-wound chronometers, which is a very technical term for a clock. And these sat in gimbals because as the ship rolls, it would actually affect the pendulum or the spring movement in the clock. And these had to keep perfect time. There were 2 of them so that they could be compared with each other to make sure that we had perfect time, because time is the only way that you can tell what the longitude is as you travel if you don't have GPS. So you can go out and shoot stars and get latitude, but you need a clock to get longitude. Really cool book called The Longitude. It's about 80 pages long. If you have a chance to read it, it talks about the development of really high-end clocks by the British Navy in order to calculate the longitude, hence the name of the book.
Okay, so what is this funky looking contraption over here?
This is called a fathometer. It's actually a special kind of sonar that pings straight down and gives you a view of the bottom of the ocean, or the ocean floor. And it does give you an accurate depth. And my father was a naval officer and used to regale me with sea stories that I, of course, picked up and retold as my own throughout my own Navy career, although I was never the officer of the deck, so I could never tell this one. But he tells a story about a young junior officer, probably an ensign or a JG, who would call the chief engineer up every time he had watch and complain about the fathometer. Chief engineer would go down and calibrate the fathometer. It's working fine. I don't know what your problem is. And so this animosity grew over the cruise until finally this JO calls the engineer up and goes, "Look at that fathometer. Look at the number. That doesn't match the chart at all. It's not even close." The chief engineer looks at it, and he looks at the chart, he looks at the JO, and he says, "That is because the fathometer measures depth in fathoms. That's why it's called a fathometer. The charted depth is in feet."
All right, so we have a little blackened area over here. What is this?
So those are called light lockers. The blackened areas are there because They are in passageways that lead to either darkened ship areas, exterior areas of the ship, or in this case it leads out to the bridge, where at night we would have the red lights on and you would not want the white lights from the chart room to blind the night vision of the people that are on the bridge. And so you would go out into the light locker, close the door in the black area, and then open the door onto the bridge and move out.
So yeah, this door right over here.
This is where we scare our guests.
This is where we scare our guests. Shh. Be very, very quiet.
We are entering the captain's at-sea cabin. So one of the things that we've done is we filmed down in the captain's in-port cabin, which is this opulent multi-room suite. It's where FDR's bathtub is. There's a huge conference table. There's a lounge area. It's massive. Here you can't swing a cat. So you have a kind of a sofa here. This converts into a bed. I tried to open it earlier. It doesn't work out real well. But this is where the captain would sleep. He's got a little reading light. He's got a attendant call button. He's got some communication gear. He's got a compass right here. So he can tell ship speed, the heading that we're on, and he lives right here just behind the bridge. So I always ask people, imagine being in your workplace for a month, knowing that your boss is living in your office, just living there full time. And you can imagine that maybe his patience might not be as great as it could be the longer that you are at sea. But this is here because the captain is responsible for everything that happens on board the ship at sea, and he does not want to be very far from the bridge in case he is needed, because both his career and his responsibility for the entire crew and for the safety of the ship revolve around the decisions that he makes. And so his response time to the bridge is critical. So this brings us back to where we started in the navigation area with the weather guesser's shack behind us. And this is sort of the unseen portion of the bridge, if you will, where it's not the helm, it's not the place where the officer of the deck stands watch, but an awful lot happens right here just behind the bridge. It keeps the ship going in the right direction and keeps the sailors safe.